Welcome back to QuickSpeak, the English podcast where we pick a new topic and we just dive in. This time, we're tackling panic attacks.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's incredible how our bodies react, these intense reactions, even when there's no real danger.
It's like our system's alarm just goes off at the worst possible moment. The thing I always find so interesting is, why do they feel so real? Like, you know you're safe, but...
It's like this surge of energy that just appears out of nowhere. Imagine, like, your amygdala, you know that little, it's a tiny almond-shaped part of your brain,
Right.
and it's responsible for processing fear and anxiety. Well, it just goes, it's like hyperactive all of a sudden. It's like, I don't know if you've ever had this, you know when that smoke detector in your kitchen goes off when you're just making toast?
The worst.
Yeah.
A false alarm, but with
Yeah.
real consequences, right?
Exactly. But it's your amygdala and it means business. So suddenly your heart's racing, your breathing changes, and your body's flooded with all this adrenaline and cortisol. And it's basically getting you ready to fight or run.
But there's nothing to run from.
Right. That's the thing.
So it's like that feeling when you think you're about to trip
Yeah.
and your whole body just tenses up, but times 100.
Yes. And all that adrenaline, it's supposed to help you, you know, in a real crisis. But during a panic attack, it's like this jolt to your system. And you're just trying to, I don't know, relax.
You're trying to read a book.
Exactly. And then you get this rush. No wonder people feel so strange, shaky, lightheaded.
Like their heart is going to beat out of their chest.
Right. And to make things even more, well, complicated, I guess, our bodies, they remember these things.
Oh, no.
So the next time, you know, you're in a similar situation or you have a thought that triggers that same fear, your body's like, oh, here we go again.
Oh, that's exhausting. Like it's constantly on high alert.
It really is.
So if our brains can learn to trigger these panic attacks, is there a way to teach them to, like, respond differently?
Absolutely. And that's where, you know, therapies like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy come in. It's almost like you're learning to be the boss of your own mind.
Okay, I like that.
You're not just along for the ride. You're actively training your brain.
So you become like a thought detective.
Yes. You uncover those thought patterns and you're like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, and replace them.
Exactly. You challenge those anxious thoughts, you get control of your breathing, and you can gradually, you know, face those situations that make you panic. It's not about getting rid of anxiety completely.
Right.
It's more like you learn to ride the wave. You know those feelings are uncomfortable, but they pass.
That makes sense. But it can't just be about thinking your way out of it, can it? I mean, what about the physical stuff? The breathing, the heart rate, all of that.
You're right. You can't forget the body. And that's where breathing exercises are really, really helpful. Learning to slow down your breathing can make a big difference.
So we're talking those deep breaths, kind of like what you do in meditation.
Yes, like a scuba diver with their air supply. There are specific techniques like diaphragmatic breathing where you really engage your diaphragm and it helps to interrupt that fight or flight response. It's really powerful and it's always there for you.
Wow, that's amazing. It seems like CBT has so many tools to manage these attacks, but it also sounds like it takes work. Like this isn't an overnight fix, is it?
You're right. It's not a magic solution. It's more like learning a new skill.
Okay.
Like, you know, playing an instrument or learning a new language. You need dedication, you need practice, but eventually it just becomes more natural, like anything you practice.
I like that. That's a great analogy. And I think it really shows how important it is to find a professional, right? Because it's hard to rewire those ingrained responses on your own. To have that support can make a huge difference. It really highlights how important finding a good therapist can be.
Yeah.
Because trying to undo those responses on your own is tough. But it's not just the panic attack in the moment, is it? Like, I have to imagine that just the thought of having one could really start to, I don't know, take over your life a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. It's like living with this wave of anxiety that just might crash down on you at any second. You know, that feeling of like, when's it going to happen again?
Yeah.
That can make people want to avoid situations where they think it might happen.
So it's not even the attack itself. It's like what it does to your behavior in the meantime.
Yeah.
Like you start avoiding things.
It's like their world gets smaller and smaller because they're trying to avoid all these triggers. Let's say you have a panic attack at, I don't know, a dinner party or something.
Yeah.
Maybe you start avoiding parties, restaurants, even just, you know, casual get-togethers with friends because you're so afraid of it happening again.
Right.
And then over time, that avoidance leads to isolation, which just feeds the anxiety even more.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
Well,
And I imagine that avoidance could leak into other parts of your life too, right? Like work or even relationships.
absolutely. Think about it. If you're terrified of having a panic attack during a presentation at work,
Oh, yeah.
you might not speak up, you might not share your ideas. It could even stop you from going for a promotion just because of that fear.
It's like these roadblocks everywhere you turn. And in relationships, I mean, how do you even explain that to someone? Especially if they've never dealt with it.
It's one of the hardest things to explain. It's like trying to describe a dream, you know? It feels so real, even if it's not. And if your loved ones just don't get it, you end up feeling, I don't know, misunderstood, frustrated.
Yeah, or like they don't believe you. It's not just the mental and emotional toll. I mean, there's got to be a physical side to this too, right?
Oh, of course. Your body can't be in fight or flight mode all the time. All those stress hormones, the adrenaline, it's exhausting. It's like running a marathon without leaving your house. You get that fatigue, muscle tension, maybe problems with digestion, sleep disturbances.
It's like your body's stuck in overdrive. This is, I mean, it's kind of a bleak picture we're painting, but I know there's hope. Like, people get through this, right?
Absolutely. Panic disorder is treatable. With the right kind of help, therapy, maybe medication, people can manage their symptoms, they can get their lives back. It's possible.
It's really good to hear that there's hope, that it is treatable. It gives people a place to start. But where do you even start? We were talking about CBT before and how it can be so helpful.
Yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy, it's really seen as the best way to treat panic disorder because it gets to the root of the problem, It helps you figure out those thought patterns and behaviors that just lead to more panic.
So like you become your own therapist in a way.
Kind of. CBT makes you aware of those thoughts that just appear out of nowhere when you're having an attack. Those really negative ones like, I'm having a heart attack or I'm gonna die, things like that.
Those racing thoughts that just spiral.
Exactly. But instead of letting them take over, you learn how to actually question those thoughts.
It's like you hit the brakes and go, wait a minute, is this real?
Yeah. You have to challenge those thoughts, and then you can start replacing them with something more, I don't know, more realistic. So instead of I'm having a heart attack, it's more like, okay, I know this feeling, it's panic, but it's going to pass, I'm going to be okay.
It's like rewiring the way you respond.
Yeah.
But it's not all in your head, is it? Did you have to like actually face your fears at some point?
Oh, for sure. That's where exposure therapy comes in, and that's where it can be really, really effective. It means slowly exposing yourself to those things you're afraid of, but in a very safe environment.
So say someone had a panic attack while they were driving, for example.
Right, so maybe they start by just, driving around the block a few times, and then as they get more comfortable, they can go a little bit farther, maybe try driving on the highway.
Little by little.
It's about proving to yourself that you can handle it, that those fears don't have power over you.
It takes away the fear of the fear, almost.
Yeah.
So CBT sounds like it has all these really helpful tools, but what about medication? Is there a place for that?
Yeah, medication can definitely help some people, especially when they're just starting out with treatment. It can help to turn down the volume on those really intense feelings so they can focus on therapy. But it's not a cure, It
Yeah.
really works best alongside therapy and those healthy lifestyle changes we talked about.
So it's about finding the right combination that works for each person.
Exactly. And it's so important to find a healthcare professional you trust to guide you through all of that. There's no one right answer for everybody.
Well, this has been incredible. Honestly, I've learned so much, not just about what causes panic attacks, but just how much they can affect someone's life. It's really powerful stuff.
It really is.
Before we go, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with? Any final thoughts?
Just if you are struggling with panic attacks, please know you are not alone. It's so common, and there is help out there. Reaching out, asking for help, that's the hardest part, but it makes such a difference.
So well said. It's okay to not be okay, and there's strength in asking for help. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you learned a lot, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
Subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment, tell us what you want to hear about next time. Until then, take care.